Hi, I'm Bill Hodges, and this is Spotlight on Government, and we have a friend here. He's changed jobs. Last time you saw him, he was the mayor of Plant City, and now he's District 58 Florida House of Representatives Representative Dan Raulerson. Good to see you.
Bill, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
I almost, when I mentioned District 58, Glorioso almost slipped in there.
Oh, yes. Well, it was 62, and then, of course, with the redistricting, all of the numbers changed, so we had to kind of get used to that and get acclimated.
I'm really happy to see you sitting in there. I have great respect for Rich Glorioso. He did a great job over the time he was in there, and I expect the same thing from you.
Well, thank you. It is a large shoes to fill. Rich did a great job. And you know what was great? When I was campaigning, everywhere I went, and I talked about Rich Glorioso, I never heard one negative comment about Rich. Everybody respected him, didn't always agree with him, but they respected him. And I think that is a great example of statesmanship. And I think Rich did a great job of doing that, and I hope to try and emulate that.
Well, something my father was always fond of saying is if two people agree on everything, there's no reason for one of them.
Good point.
So the fact that we do have honest disagreements and we can still work together without rancor, to me, seems to be a very important task.
It's extremely important, and I think that's one of the things that I've learned in the little bit of time that I've been in Tallahassee. There seems to be a spirit of cooperation on both sides of the aisle, and I think that's something that everyone recognizes that we need to have.
One of the things, as you probably remember from previous shows, that I always ask my people who hold political office is, why are you doing this? I mean, you had some taste of it being mayor of Plant City. Now you go on to be a state representative?
Well, that could be explained by a full lobotomy.
Full moon, what?
Well, actually, it's an honor. I mean, it wasn't something that I had planned on doing. I became a city commissioner, and I guess I didn't mess that gig up very badly because when Rich was being termed out, I was asked if I would consider running for the office. And spoke with my staff because I run a CPA firm, and of course that's a busy time of the year for us. And as we sat down and discussed this and I asked their permission, all of the staff looked at me and said, Dan, you don't do anything around here anyway, so go do something constructive with your life and go to Tallahassee.
Get me out of our hair.
Exactly, just leave. But they're a great group of people. I couldn't do this if it weren't for them being willing to step up to the plate and take on some more responsibilities. And it's been a group effort. The clients have been terrific about understanding that. So, why did I want to do it? I think that being a CPA and being a business person, I saw what some of the things that government intervention was doing with some regulations. We have to have regulation. There's no question about that. But it's smart regulations. It's regulations that make sense. And sometimes, as you know, in the politics of things, it can get a little convoluted. And so it just takes a little common sense and some real life experience to go in and say, okay, let's see if we can make this a little easier. That was one of the things that I thought about when I was asked to do this that I really wanted to accomplish.
Just to maintain for a lot of our people, they hear people running for the Senate or the House or the state Senate or the state House, and a lot of them think that these are really high-paying jobs, and once they get into those jobs, they just go on and on and on and make a big fortune out of being in political jobs. That's not true, right?
No, that's not true.
Maybe for the federal guys, that's pretty good money, but from the state.
Not bad, but for the state, well, we make $30,000 a year, which again, if you're working part-time, not bad money, but you're laughing, and rightfully so. I think when you figure out the hourly rate, it's about $1.50 an hour. There's a lot of time commitment, obviously, in this. But I like to tell people also that I didn't give up my day job to do this. I'm still a CPA. I will still be in the office, even during session and the off days, to work. I don't think the founders intended for our system to have full-time professional politicians.
I'm with you on that.
If you're truly representative, then you represent the people, and you are the people, you are one of the people. They thought enough of you to send you up there to keep tabs on what the government is doing on their behalf. And I take that very serious. So yeah, it can be, I raised $180,000 for a $30,000 a year job. That's political math. It's, that's the way it works. But it is a system that is imperfect, but it's the best one in the world.
Well,
and with all of its imperfections and all of the things that make it inconvenient for someone like me to run, you still run because you believe in the system.
And it's not a 9-to-5 job. I think a lot of people, many of the people, maybe even watching today, think of a job as being you go in at 8 o'clock and you get off at 4, you get off at 5, and that's the end of it.
Right.
But you can't even go out for dinner, out for lunch. You can't go to the supermarket without somebody coming up to you and saying, you know, I asked you about the potholes in my street. Have you got a bill going in the house now taking care of my potholes?
Right. And you know, and for me, I love to hear that. It means that people are engaged. If people care enough to walk up to you, you know, when you're in the supermarket or wherever you are, and they are, number one, they're knowledgeable enough about the issues to ask you about an issue, and they take the time to come up and show that they care, those are the folks I want as constituents. I mean, that's fine. That's not aggravating to me. It's actually, you know, I guess it's a bit inspiring, really. So, and I don't mind that at all.
Yeah, Mark Sharp was saying the same thing. He really doesn't mind. You know, I would think after a while, though, you'd like to be able to take your wife out to a movie or something and be able to just concentrate on your wife.
Well, you know, Shirley and I have been married for 25 years. I don't know how I put up with her for that long.
Because you raised a beautiful daughter to go along with it.
But she put up with me, believe me. But in that 25 years, you know, we've done all the stuff, and we knew going into this that it was going to take a commitment, that it was going to be an element of time that we were not going to have. But, you know, we've got a very strong marriage, and we worked that out before I decided to run, and we talked about it. Now, the other thing is that she's head of the administration for the firm, so she's actually my boss. So, you know, so I kind of have to be nice to her because she's the one that decides if I get a pay raise or not. But no, it's a very good point. The time element is critical, but you know, you got to do it. Yep. I mean, it's a worthy calling, and it's something that has to be done.
Somebody has to do it.
And frankly, it really is. It's a lot of fun. When I was campaigning, you know, I got used to that. If you had to work and then go out and campaign. A campaign at night, campaign in the morning, during lunch.
Yeah, but you were able to get a Miss Florida to go out there and campaign.
Well, yeah, I mean, it wasn't fair, you know. but the thing about it was, I really loved campaigning, and it was a lot of fun, but then there's a problem. I got elected, so now I have to work, and I'm not sure I like that. But no, it's a worthy calling, and it's something that I'm very excited about doing.
For those that don't know, Dan's daughter is a past Miss Florida. What year?
2010.
And she's gone on to college now.
She's in college, University of Florida, to Mileman. I'm a loyal Seminole, so we have a house divided, but she loves being up in Gainesville, and I see the look on your face, and yes, there were demands for a DNA test. So, but she's a great kid. We're very proud of her. She's done extremely well.
And she's engaged now?
She's engaged.
A Marine pilot?
And her brother, Alec, is at the University of West Florida. And he's doing extremely well, and he has never let her get the big head about being Miss Florida. He has been her...
That's your brother's job,
right?
He
has been her gut check, her ego check for all these years, and she's never let it go to her head because of that. So he's done a pretty good job of keeping her in line.
After you were elected, I said, what I'd like to do is have you on the air before the legislature starts, but after you'd gone up and gone through the boot camp, if you will.
Yes.
Will you tell us what it was like going up there as a freshman to the boot camp, maybe even what the boot camp is?
It's like drinking from a fire hydrant. You know, you go up and you get assigned your committees. And that process is interesting because you get a form after you've been elected from the Speaker's office. And they ask you what committees that you have preferences for, ones that you would prefer not to serve on, and they try and accommodate that. And I was very fortunate. I was able to get on most of the committees that I wanted to be on. But once you get into committee assignment, then you go to Tallahassee for the first committee week. And it's really an orientation. A lot of it is sitting in the committees, finding out what the committees do, how they operate, what their purpose is, what the objective is, and how that correlates into legislation and the legislative process. So we've been up there for 1 week, and it was really terrific. We did have a Republican caucus, and in that particular gathering, they gave us a problem to solve. They gave us some legislation to work on as a mock legislative issue. This is where the boot camp part comes in. It's really great. So there were 8 groups, and each group had 2 freshmen. And the freshmen, so they gave us a tax problem. What is it about the tax code in the state of Florida that you would change?
Oh, right up your alley.
Oh yeah, it was great. So they had 8 groups, and it was all of the Republican folks that all of the legislators that were in these groups, 2 freshmen in each group, and the freshmen had to present the case to the rest of the legislature.
Oh.
And what they didn't tell us when we got up to present was that they had a panel of about 8 people whose sole purpose was to just rake us over the coals. They challenged every philosophical point that we made. They went at us hard, went at us tough, but it was all in good-spirited fun.
Sure.
But it was kind of like a boot camp. It really was. We had a chance to get up and demonstrate some oratorical skills, some debating skills. We found out that people have a sense of humor, and that was the part to me that was the great surprise, was that even though you're going to be in some vigorous debates, and even though this is serious stuff, people have a collegiality about them when you're there. You're all legislators, you're there to work, you're not going to agree, but even when you don't agree, at the end of the day, you don't take it personal. And that was a really good prep for going into battle.
That must be law class 101.
It seemed like it, yeah.
Because in all honesty, when I was with NCR years ago, I handled workman's comp for the company, and we would go to trial, and the attorneys would literally tear each other apart while we were in the trial. And I'm thinking, these guys hate each other. And when it came time to wait for the jury, we'd all go to lunch together.
Right.
And they're all buddies. And it's just amazing. You think that they're really mad at each other, but they're not.
No, that's the beauty of it. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, Republican, Democrat, Independent, you have things you're passionate about, and there has to be respect for that. And at the end of the day, after you've discussed the meritorious parts of the case or of the legislation or whatever that you're talking about, you can't take it personal, because down the road, there's going to be something you're going to need each other's help with, you see. So you can't burn bridges. That's the one thing that I've learned early on, is you can't burn bridges.
It's very important, I think, for everybody to understand that when you go up there, you were elected as a Republican, but you go up there to represent everybody.
Absolutely.
Not just the people who voted for you. So you have to keep an ear open to those who didn't vote for you.
Well, I'm a 6th-generation Floridian, and I've been a Democrat, I've been a Republican. At the end of the day—
So is Charlie Crist.
Yeah, let's not go there. God bless him. But anyway, what I think is important to understand is exactly what you just said, and you articulated it very well, is that we represent everyone. Now, I have my constituents that have seen fit to vote me to go there and to represent them, and that I will do. But you're also there as a citizen of the state of Florida, and you have to look at what's the best interest of the state. And having
For everybody.
Having a long family history here, that's important to me, because you'll get into issues that you might not relate a conservative Republican with, like the environment or other things that will come up. You have to have some common sense, and you have to look at it from the standpoint of what's in the best interest of the state. And I really believe one of the nice things that I got in the first committee week was that feeling of cooperation. Some people like to call it co-opetition, if you're a Democrat and a Republican, but still there's an air, and I think Will Weatherford has really set the tone.
Will's a first-class act.
He really is. He's wise beyond his years. I usually like to say politics is for old people because of the life experiences and all the things that you bring to the table. Will's the exception to the rule. I think he's very wise. But he has set a tone for that. Look, we're all in this together. We will all work together. We'll be serious about it, and we will respect each other. But at the end of the day, we have to look out for what is in the best interest of the state of Florida. And I think if you look at the redistricting exercise that we went through, that is a perfect example of him putting his actions where his mouth is, because he went and led a group of people to write the rules and to write the districts so that it passed the Supreme Court the first time. And even though it pitted certain legislators against each other, and there were some very unpopular moves that he made there, but he said, this is what the people have said, this is what we're going to do. And I think that spirit is certainly permeating in the attitudes of a lot of the legislators that are there.
I'm a little curious. What was it that you finally thought was the most important thing that you came up with on this tax code issue that you had to make the presentation on? We only have 30 minutes here, so.
This is going to be pretty bizarre, but we actually came up with a plan to eliminate all property tax
All
in the
right.
state of Florida.
All right.
No ad valorem tax, no real estate tax.
Okay,
In exchange for that, everything would be subject to a sales tax.
okay.
That included a tax on services. Now, for those of you out there that are my CPA brethren, don't freak out. I'm not going to write a bill to start doing the tax on services, because we know what happened to Governor Martinez
I'm
and
a
all of that when it
professional
happened
speaker. I don't want
back
that
in the
either.
80s. Right. And I was, you know, obviously a CPA at that time, and we're not crazy about tax on services. But what was interesting about the exercise was to find out how difficult it is to govern, because you had 8 very talented people in each group that had to sit down and come up with an idea and then get agreement on it, and then get it to the point where you could write a bill and present it. And it really taught you how difficult this process can be. You can have a great idea, but once it gets into the political arena, it can be torn apart in all different directions. So that was an eye-opening experience, a good one. But we thought we had a pretty good idea. We thought it had some economic merit to it, and so some people actually got excited about it. But it was interesting that we came up with that kind of an idea, fairly radical.
Well, I like the idea of possibility thinking,
Yes.
rather than you can't do that, you can't do that. Open it up, look at it.
Right. I think in the real world, when you've been in business for 35 years, like I have, and you've seen just about everything, you understand that where there's a will, there's a way. When you have an analysis
pun on
of the
the chairman?
facts. I'm sorry? Yes, well, that was, no pun intended, Will, but Speaker, but you know, that's a great phrase, because he knows how to get it done. But the fact is that the life experiences and the business experience, I think, teaches you that there are options. There are creative ways and innovative ways to solve problems. And I believe that I'm really excited about the talent that we have in Tallahassee. We have 120 very talented legislators in the House, 40 senators. All the ones that I've met have been very intelligent, very engaging. Everybody's ready to get to work and do good things. Now, the key there, and I think the thing that all legislators in Tallahassee understand, sometimes it's not about what we do, but about what we don't do. Sometimes you get in a position as an elected official and you think you need to start doing stuff.
Well, that's true.
We need to solve problems. We need to start doing legislation. I need to pass 6 bills. No, 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 no. Back up, relax. Let's look at this in a way that we don't have to do anything. We have to pass a budget, but what we really have to do is look to see if our actions will create unintended consequences. The book is full of unintended consequences in terms of what's in the statutes.
True.
And we have a program called a repealer program that was started, I think, by Will a couple of years ago, that actually if you have a repealer bill, in other words, if you introduce a bill that repeals one of the statutes, it doesn't count against the 6 that you're allowed. So that really had a great impact, because it actually pulled a great deal of useless legislation out of the statutes. And as you know, and as everybody out there knows, we're in a time of critical mass now. We've got regulations and rules that keep, you know, multiplying, and just to be a citizen and live in this state is complicated. So we really have to try and go in and purge some of the useless and meaningless statutes and rules and regulations that are there to make life a little easier.
I have always been a proponent of sundown legislation attached to bills.
Absolutely.
That they're only good for a certain period of time, and if they're going to be good in that period of time, people look at them again, so we'll repass them.
That's a great
Otherwise,
point.
they're gone.
That is a fantastic point, and that is something that we really need to implement, is to say, you know, this sunsets after a certain period of time, and if it's worthy, it'll go back through reevaluation, and if it's a worthy law, then we'll continue to do it. But I think that would create a great deal of work. There's no question that requires work. But if that's done, you really find a lot of outdated legislation that wouldn't stay in the statutes. So that's
Well, you'd have to
something to work
re-justify it in the light of a new time.
Exactly.
And I'm not sure this fiscal cliff thing and everything, and I look at these mandatory cuts, I don't know that I wouldn't like to see some of these things happen.
Right.
Now, if you want them back, repass it.
You know, you're right. I don't think the fiscal cliff has never worried me from the standpoint of it being a tumultuous disaster. What we have to understand is that the American entrepreneur, the American business, whether it's a large business or a small business, is innovative, The government has thrown stuff at us before. We've survived and thrived, and will continue to do so. It would just be nice for it to be a little easier and to have a little more common sense and to have a little bit of planning. You know, this last bill that they passed to avert the cliff was at the last minute.
And
that's silly. You know, we really need to start managing our affairs like grown-ups rather than, you know, third graders that put it off until the last minute. And I think in the legislature that we have in Tallahassee, I believe there are a lot of folks there that are of that mindset, and I'm excited about that.
It was kind of silly to me. I'm listening to, I'm a moderate, okay? But I was listening to Grover Norquist talk with one of the talking heads, and he said, well, we had to push it to January 1st to vote on it, because if we voted on it the day before, we were voting for a tax increase on the highest group. And if we voted for it on January 1st, we were voting for a tax decrease on 98%. I mean, come on, people.
Bill, it's all a matter of the spin. You know, it's the spin. You know, you understand that. That's part of the deal. And you just have to, you look at it. As long as there are people out there that will tell the truth.
He said it with a straight face, though.
I know, but he was telling the truth. And you know, people out there should be mad when they hear that and should vote accordingly. You know, let's make sure we get people in there that will treat this serious and treat it with respect and do the things they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do them. And I know as a CPA, we had a heck of a time trying to do tax planning. A lot of the tax planning that we did.
My son's been whining for weeks.
Oh, well.
He's a CPA also.
Right, and rightfully so. I mean, my busy time is October, November, December, because we're trying to plan for what can we do to save ourselves before now or the end of the year.
Right.
And we do that with all of our business clients. And as a result of that, the rules were the rules. Now, we had some idea of what might happen, but we didn't know. So all we had to work with was what was on the books. And that meant that every tax rate was going up 3%. So then you tell people, well, maybe you want to put more income into this year because the tax rates are going up next year. Well, then they kept the tax rates and changed it on the upper, you know, if you make over $450,000. So, you know.
Which didn't affect a whole lot of your clients, I would suspect.
No, but it makes it frustrating from the standpoint that if you tell someone to put all the work that we did and all the planning and to say, now the strategy that we came up with, well, it didn't hurt you, but it didn't help you.
Right.
You know, so it becomes difficult in that regard.
More of the same.
Right.
You know, I always give, especially folks who are newly elected, a minute or two to talk directly to their constituency and thank the ones that helped them and assure the ones that didn't that they're still going to get support. So would you like to take a minute and talk?
Certainly. Well, thank you very much for trusting me and putting me in this position. I take it very seriously. For those of you that did not vote for me, I will earn your trust. For those of you that did, you're crazy. But thank you thank you. No, seriously, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to do this. It's something I take very serious. It is a great responsibility. You know, it's important to understand that there are 161 people, if you include the governor, that are charged with running a $70 billion budget. That's not chicken feed. That's a lot of money, and it's extremely important that we are stewards of your money in a good and honest and forthright way, and that we treat it with respect. So that's what my promise is to you, and I appreciate so much your support. Thank you.
Well, I know they're going to get their money's worth. You're a really hard
I hope
worker.
we have the same conversation in a year, Bill.
Well, you'll be back in a year, I promise you.
And I'm sure before then, anytime. I appreciate you having me.
We are in a turbulent time, and we're in a time where I think the American people have finally said, enough. I'm tired of hearing the wrangling from over here. I'm tired of hearing the wrangling from over here. What about the rest of us? You know, what about that 50, 60, 70% that sit here in the center? Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be the charge for the next few years, is that the people that wrangle either way are not going to win.
Well, but here's another thought, and think about this. Those people that don't go to the polls, now we had a great turnout this last time, and that's encouraging. But for those people that are not engaged in the process, that are not educating themselves as to the issues, that don't even know who their legislator is, I get emails calling me congressman. You know, and God bless them for I mean, I love the communication. They can call me anything they want, but the point is that you know, it's important for people to understand and to take a little bit of time to understand the process and to understand the issues and to act on those and to hold their elected officials accountable for that. You know, get off your fat rear end, turn off American Idol, put the six-pack of beer back in the fridge, and spend a couple of hours a week understanding the issues and voting intelligently on them and showing up at the polls. This republic will not survive unless the people that run it, which are the citizens, will engage in that. So I think that there is a big, to me, I would challenge the electorate to get more engaged and become more educated, because we are in tough times. And it's going to take a great deal of intellectual capacity, which frankly I'm very limited on, but if I have the ideas of my constituents that can help me solve some problems, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I look at the city of Tampa. I think 22% voted in the mayoral election.
Exactly. What does that say?
11% of the people chose the mayor.
Right. And you know, when you've got kids overseas getting their heads blown off, you know,
that's a whole
to protect us.
That's a whole.
You know, what does that say to them? It's not very good policy. So that's the challenge. Is that more people really should be engaged in this process. It's worthwhile.
But what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the state in the next 2 years?
I think that's a great question.
You've been up there.
Oh, well, there are two.
Okay.
Education and health care. You know, we have, Governor Scott has a decision to make, and as do we, with regard to the health, you know, the health care plan that has been ratified by the Supreme Court. So that is going to be an issue in terms of how we manage that. As you know, Florida has been a donor state in terms of taxes for many years. We wind up giving more to the federal government than we get back. That will probably have some play in the decision making that's done with regard to the health care bill. With regard to education, Florida has made great strides in education. We have done well, but I'm not sure, you know, in terms of evaluating teachers, in terms of doing those, I'm not sure how you evaluate a teacher. You know, name a teacher for me that you had grade 1 through 12 that just comes to the top of your mind.
Oh, my English teacher.
Right.
He was Burt Rankin. I mean, everything that I am today, he was the seeds that grew me.
There was something about that teacher that inspired you. And the thing that I want us to be careful about is that we don't take that away from teachers. That we allow them to be those people and not just teach to the test. So that's where I think some of the challenges are.
Dan, we've run out of time again. Every time I have you on the show, we get excited, we keep going, and we never get through all the things we'd like to get. So I want to have you back.
Bill, thank you. It's been a hoot, and I will be glad to be back anytime. It's been a blast. Thank you.
And I'll be watching.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Bill Hodges. This is Spotlight on Government. You are unique, you are special, and you are great. Tell yourself so often, because you are, you know, and we'll see you on the next Spotlight on Government. And Dan, again, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.